Pirkei Avot, Pirkei Mishnah Dalet. Asara nisim nasu l'avosenu v'Mitzrayim v'asara al hayom. The Rebbeinu Shalom performed 20 miracles for us when we came out of Mitzrayim and crossed the Yam Suf. 10 in Mitzrayim and 10 on the Yam Suf. 20 nisim. The question arises, why does the Tana feel it's so important? Why does he stress and emphasize that there were 10 in Mitzrayim? There were 10 on the Yam Suf. Why is that division important? There were 20 miracles. Why is it important for us to know that there were 10 in Mitzrayim, specifically 10 in Mitzrayim, and 10 al Yam Suf? And there were 10. 10 in Mitzrayim, 10 on Yam Suf. 10, we know the number 10 represents a completion, a shlemus. It completes a cycle. What is the Tana teaching us over here? Perhaps the pshat is that there weren't just 20 miracles. There were two groups, two categories. There was a group of 10 in Mitzrayim. That was one category. That was one type of miracle. And there was a completion with that category with the number with the 10th. Then there was another category, another type of miracle. A different category of miracle on Yam Suf. And it also reached completion with the number 10, with the 10th miracle, with the 10th nace. What are these two categories? And perhaps the pshat is as follows. When we were in Mitzrayim, we were slaves. Slaves for 210 years. In Golitz for 400 years. Generation after generation of avodim, backbreaking, meaningless, mindless slavery, basic menial labor, mindless labor, pisam v'ramses, misreises, work that had no meaning. We build walls, they would collapse. Build pyramids, they would collapse. No sense of purpose, no sense of identity. The Mitzrim tried to turn us into basic behemoths with mentes shari tuma. What was the possibility, what were our capabilities of having emunah and bitachon after so many years and generations of this type of slavery, the mentes shari tuma? What were our capabilities to have emunah and bitachon and trust in the Rebbeinu Shalom, to be willing to be moiser nefesh, to rebel against these masters, these all-powerful masters, to shecht their avodah zarah in front of their eyes, to shecht the korban pesach, to rebel and run out of Mitzrayim, take their wealth with them, take the wealth of Mitzrayim, and have that emunah in the Rebbeinu Shalom. What were the possibilities? What were the chances that we would have that koyach, that capability? Well, we didn't have it. We had some emunah, and we davened to Hashem. But we weren't on that madrega. But we davened to Hashem. And the Rebbeinu Shalom gave us. He was mashpi on us, the siyata d'shmaya. And He gave us those miracles to draw us out of the memtes shari tuma. Isra'usa de la'ela. That's what's called Isra'usa de la'ela, the hashba that comes from above. We made a small effort. We davened to Hashem, but we weren't on that madrega. The Rebbeinu Shalom bestowed it upon us. He was mashpia this to us, to draw us out from the memtes shari tuma. Those were the 10 miracles that were in Mitzrayim. That was one category of nace. The category of nace that comes from above. The siyata d'shmaya. The Rebbeinu Shalom helps us. Isarusa de la'ela. That was one category. The 10 miracles in Mitzrayim. There was another category. The 10 al hayam. We were ready. We already had achieved a certain madrega when we came out of Mitzrayim. We already elevated from the memtes shari tuma to a degree. Now we were capable of much more. Now this wasn't sufficient. When we came to Yam Suf, now we had to demonstrate from within. We had to demonstrate and show our emunah and bitachon. And the hashpah had to come from within, from above, from below. not from above. It had to be an Isrusa Dilatata. It had to be a Hashkafa that's triggered because of our actions, because of what we do. We had the gift from the Rebbeinu Shalom in Mitzrayim, but now at Yam Suf, Lama titzek alai, dabral b'nei Yisrael v'yiso. Why are you davening now? Tell b'nei Yisrael to go into the Yam Suf. And of course, everybody asks, and in Eisora, the Mitzrayim are running after them. You don't daven? As the Nefesh HaChaim explains, but now they needed their own mice. It had to come from their action, from their amunah b'tochen. They had to demonstrate their amunah b'tochen, their mesiras nefesh. So they had to jump into the yam. They needed a maisa. Israrus l'latata. It was a different category of a nes. After they demonstrated that, after they showed their amunah b'tochen, they triggered the nes. After they came out of Mitzrayim, they were elevated from the Yitziyah, from Mitzrayim. Now they had to become an Am Hashem. Now in Yam Suf they had to become an Am Hashem, and to trigger the nisim of the Yam Suf, they needed their maisim, their actions. Israrus l'tata. That's what the Tana is teaching us, perhaps. It's not only 20 miracles. There's not only 20 nisim. There are two categories. There's one category in Mitzrayim and one on Yam Suf. And it teaches us a fundamental lesson, that there are times when the Rabbi Shalom is mashpi on us. We daven, and he gives us things, he's mashpi on us, and things that are tremendous siyata d'shmaya. But we shouldn't take it for granted that that's always going to be that way. Then we have reached another madriga, we've reached another level. The Rabbi Shalom has given us a gift. Now to go to the next level, we are going to have to demonstrate from within our amunah, our bitochen. We have to perform our maises, our actions, in order to trigger the next level of hashpa, siyata d'shmaya, of nisim. We're going to have to perform our own actions to trigger it and to get to that next level. I once asked Harav Shimon Badani, Shlita, what is the segula for zikaron, to remember your learning? What's the segula to remember your learning? He says there's no segula for remembering your learning. It's only chazring, and more chazring. It's up to you. You have to perform your maisim. You have to learn in chazr. That's the segula. By learning and chazring. I once asked the Sarah Torah, Rav Chaim Shlita, what's the segula for zikaron, to remember your learning? And Rav Chaim said, what's important to a person he remembers. If your learning is important to you, if that's what's really important to you, you'll remember it. Again, similar type of concept, that there are no shortcuts, there are no skulas. It's your maisim, it's your actions. You have to learn and chazer over and over and over again. But l'chayre, it seems to be somewhat difficult, because we know the Gemara in Megillah. If a person says, Yagati, v'loy matzati, al tamin. If he says, I worked and I tried and I learned, but I was not successful, don't believe him. Don't believe him. In Talmud Torah and Limud Torah, if there's Yegiya, you'll be successful. If you work, if there's Yegiya, you'll be successful. However, the Gemara says that's only as far as understanding. But as far as remembering the learning, that is siyata d'shmaya. That's siyata d'shmaya. So you see clearly, as far as zikaron and remembering, luk migirsa, that's siyata d'shmaya. So you see, it is siyata d'shmaya. So what were these gedolim telling me? What do they mean? We see there's siyata d'shmaya involved in zikaron. It's not only Yegiya. But I think what they were saying is as follows. Of course there's siyata d'shmaya. But that siyata d'shmaya will only come once there is a Yegiya. It's siyata d'shmaya, there's no guarantee. But if you learn and you chazer, and the only way is to learn and chazer with Yegiya, to toil and labor, with your whole heart, with all your energy and all your koyach. And if you do that, then you're capable, you have the key for the Siyata D'Shmaya, which will enable you to remember more in Torah than in other areas. In other areas, if you have a good memory and you try to remember, you'll retain a certain amount. In Talmud Torah, there's an element of Siyata D'Shmaya, and you can retain and remember things beyond your capabilities, beyond your intellectual capabilities that you have in other areas. You're capable of retaining and remembering much more. But it can only come, that Siyata D'Shmaya can only come and be triggered with your Ma'aser, with your Yegiyah, with your learning and your Chazorah. Comes to mind a Ma'aser I remember many years ago when I was a young boy and I went to shul with my father. Now my father, Shlita, he was a Holocaust survivor. He came to Toronto penniless after the horrors of the Holocaust. He was in the camps, and he came to Toronto penniless. Now there were those survivors who were broken by the terrible horrors of the camps and the Holocaust, and they somewhat gave up on life. But there were those who, despite everything, tried to rebuild their lives, tried to rebuild Yiddishkeit and Torah with all their effort, full of energy. And they had a tremendous amount of Siyata D'Shmaya. They were able to build meisters in a remarkable, unimaginable way. And my father was one of those. He built shuls and yeshivas, put his energy into building mikvois, and there was tremendous Siyata D'Shmaya. So I went to shul. This was Leil Shabbos, and we went to shul, and this was a shul that my father was instrumental in building. It's a wonderful kehillah, beautiful shul. And when we approached the shul, there was a man there with his grandson, and he said to his grandson, he pointed to my father and he said, "Shake this man's hand. Shake this man's hand. He has good luck. Maybe it'll rub off on you. Maybe this good luck, he has extraordinary good luck. Maybe that good luck will rub off, and shake his hand." So afterwards I asked my father, I was very perplexed, what was he talking about? What does he mean? So my father said to me that years ago, when the shul was just in a basement, and they were davening in a basement, and there was some discussion about building a new shul, and how big should they build a new shul, how big should they build it, how were they going to gather the funds to it, where were they going to get the money for this? So there was a discussion and a dispute, and my father was on the side that we definitely have to build a new shul, and this gentleman, this was one from the other side. Now, he was not a Holocaust survivor, and he grew up and lived his whole life, a peaceful life, secure life in Canada. And he didn't know from risk-taking, and he didn't know about going out of the way and rocking the boat and in any way jeopardizing the secure life that he grew up with. And he didn't know anything about that type of risk-taking. So he was on the other side of it and was of the opinion that we definitely shouldn't. Where are we going to get the funds? My father said, "What do you mean?" "Well, all 10 people will get together, we'll take a bank loan, we'll take a loan from the bank, we'll all sign on it, we'll sign and guarantee the loan, we'll get the funds together, and we'll build a building." And this other gentleman said, "What are you talking about? We're going to sign personally to the bank? We're going to personally sign to the bank to guarantee the loan? What are you talking about? You must be crazy." But my father prevailed. They took out a bank loan. Those who were willing signed personally. And they built this beautiful shul, had a beautiful kehillah, choshev harav, and ultimately they paid off the loan and the mortgage, etc. And this gentleman, in his mind, it was good luck. There's no explanation of this. How there was such a wild idea. How can anybody do this? How can anybody take such a risk? How can anybody put themselves at risk their families? How can anybody do this? It must have been good luck. But what it was was the siyata d'shmaya from the Sarusa L'Tata after being saved from the Gehenna of the Holocaust, after coming to a new land and being able to build a family and having the Sarusa de La'elu to rebuild a life. Those survivors who were willing to be Meiser Nefesh and to extend themselves and to build Yiddishkeit, to build Torah, there was an Isarusa L'Tata after they were Meiser Nefesh, when they put their koyach into it and willing to take the risk and the chances, the Rabbi Shalom was mashpia, all kinds of siyata d'shmaya. That Isarusa L'Tata, that effort, their personal effort, triggered the nisim alayam, the nisim that comes from our meisim, which triggers a special